Hey, it's Martin here again. A little bit of thought for the weekend. Talked about distractions and commitments and all these things. So obviously, once you've committed to something and you have a goal, the question is how do you make sure that you actually get there? One of the things that I found really interesting and actually super annoying was the amount of distractions that all of a sudden I had to deal with. Whereas in the old, in my old setting at work, I was always sort of pushed in a direction or in a dynamic that I just kept on moving. But all of a sudden, when you're idling, not idling, but you're by yourself, you have to create a dynamic that is true to yourself and is your own dynamic. All of a sudden you're a lot more sensitive or vulnerable almost to all these distractions of the things that you could do, that you want to do, and all this stuff. The possibilities are infinite, absolute infinite. And in the beginning, I found it interesting, and then I just started to become really, really annoyed by it. So one of the things is that productivity is something that I've gotten really sort of interested in and sort of understand how I can, make my day better. How can I make my day more productive? How can I make my life more productive? And one of the ways to do that is to obviously take all the distractions out. One of the big distractions, obviously, is all the stuff that happens online. How many times have I, in the beginning, sort of started to work on a project or an idea, and then I just got sidetracked, and then before you know it, it's an hour down the drain that you've basically watched cat videos or whatever it is. So one of the things that I started to do is really put productivity blockers, not productivity blockers, but distraction blockers on both my cell phone and my laptop. And those are things that are really hard to sort of get off. And so they're helping me to keep track. It's not perfect, but it really sort of helps you keep focused on certain things. And there's a truckload of different apps that you can and should have a look at. So, but that's one of the things that really sort of keeps you focused. The other thing is I noticed that and this is different for a lot of people, but I think in general, people are really creative in the morning. So for someone like me who is creative and does a lot of creative work, I like to get my creative work done sort of before or just after lunch until after lunch. And then for the rest of the afternoon, I do a lot of what I would call maybe maintenance, things that are not so involved creatively that I need to sort of really sort of go into my head for a couple of hours and think about things. So that's one of the things. And then I think that's about productivity, and there's really sort of you. What I did was really question myself. Okay, what what is this going to bring me? What is this going to help me with? And if I do X, Y, and Z, is this going to get me closer to the goal? Now, again, I'm not perfect at all, but this all is, I think, if you start creating habits, at some point they become, second nature, and then it becomes ingrained into you. So I also have to remind myself over and over again to keep doing these things because they're not second nature to me yet. Absolutely not. So it's a long process because we as human beings always default to back to something that's comfortable and that's familiar, and very often indulging ourselves into instant gratification, be it something that we eat or something that we see on the web or something like that. Um, that's become very, very dangerous for a lot of us and for me. Well, dangerous, not really dangerous, but you get my drift. So the other thing that I thought was really interesting was that sort of reading and listening to a lot of things that would talk about productivity and goal setting and all these things. One of the things is, really setting a goal. It's great to dream, but you have to dream with a goal in mind. And I'm talking about a North Star. It's not what are you going to do tomorrow. A goal is really something that, in truth, you thought maybe you could never achieve. But actually, if you set yourself that goal, most of the time you can actually achieve it. and it's happened. I've seen this a lot with people who say, well, I could never do that. And then I said to them, well, why don't you set yourself that goal? And lo and behold, they actually didn't only achieve that goal, they actually surpassed that goal. Really, really interesting. You should try it. And really, not the only limitations that we all have are in our heads. That's really, really crucial. And it's really interesting what our head is playing its tricks on us, because basically our brain is trying to limit damage from the get-go. So it's getting ourselves back to a place that's comfortable and familiar. And very often when we set these lofty goals where we really go out and, as they say, leap and the net will appear, it is really true. This is what's happening. So one of the things that really helped me with going through this process were really 4 questions that are incredibly important, I think, to ask yourself a lot of times when you come to a crossroads or when you get to a place where you don't know what to do anymore. Those are 4 questions, and they are, what would happen if you did? What would happen if you didn't? What wouldn't happen if you did? And what wouldn't happen if you didn't? Those are not only just 4 great questions to help you with some decisions, it's also great to actually reframe certain elements of your life, certain situations, and certain paths of actions that you may or you may not want to take. It's really a great way to sort of think about things in a different light. And on that note, hope your weekend is awesome, and there is going to be more next week. All right, see you then. Bye.